Kurt Top here, and these are 100 discoveries that made scientists believe in aliens. Stone berries. In the desert of the southwestern United States, strange rounded stones were found, like stone berries scattered on the sand. At first, they were mistaken for weathered rock fragments, until it was discovered that similar structures are found in Hopi legends about heavenly seeds and that similar formations exist on Mars. Their shape is perfectly spherical or slightly elongated, with a smooth, polished surface. Geologists call them concretions, but typically such stones form in layers pressed together by rocks. Here they lay loose as if someone had emptied them from a bag. The strangest thing is their chemical composition. Inside, there are iron layers that are very reminiscent of the Martian blueberries, spheres discovered by exactly the same teams on Mars by the Opportunity rover. The composition of the elements is almost identical. The Hopi call these berries the traces of visiting teachers from the Red Star. Scientific theories are simpler: a rare form of mineralization, prolonged wind erosion. But then it's unclear why the structures are identical in different countries, and why some of the berries seem to have been scorched by high temperatures never experienced in these areas. This is a conundrum for archaeologists. Is it an artifact, a mineral, or a trace of events we can't yet describe? But the fact remains: such forms are repeated on both Earth and Mars, and sometimes nature replicates itself too precisely in places where the conditions for it would seem impossible. Black Pyramid. A stone pyramid from Ecuador with an inlaid eye at the top, 13 steps and small symbols at the base often appears in collections of out-of-place artifacts. It was allegedly discovered in the 1980s near La Mana, Cotopaxi province, along with hundreds of strange objects. The eye glows under a UV lamp. On the base is a drawing of the Orion constellation and prehistoric writing. The artifact is attributed to private collections, including the Klaus Dona Circle and the Crespi collection. The problem is that the object has no published archaeological context, no excavation report, no layer coordinates, no museum inventory history. This is a major red flag for archaeology. The fact of UV glow in itself proves nothing. Many minerals and modern pigments fluoresce under black light. The reference to 13 steps in Orion is an interpretation of appearance, not a dating indicator. The key is provenance. A significant portion of the Ecuadorian wonders revolve around the collection of the priest Carlos Crespi, Cuenca, to which locals donated antiquities for decades without recording their findings. As early as the 20th century, a number of researchers and journalists labeled a significant portion of this collection as fakes or late artisanal artifacts, and the collection itself remained outside the scope of normal scientific publication. True anomalous objects inevitably leave a trail of documentation: location, layer, accompanying ceramics, charcoal for dating, laboratory reports, publication in a specialized journal, and museum inventory. The Black Pyramid lacks this. Tombs not for people. Archaeologists are used to interpreting everything in the usual framework. If there is a stone box, then it is a sarcophagus. But in Egypt and Peru, there are burials that do not fit into the human scale. In Saqqara, there are granite boxes weighing 60 to 70 tons. They are processed with jewelry precision, but inside they are so huge that the body of one person would look like a crumb in them. For several, inconvenient. Why such dimensions? On the other side of the world, in the Andes, tiny stone sarcophagi were discovered. Their proportions are so small that an adult body simply does not fit in them. The official version is that these are burials of children or symbolic rituals. But then why were they made with the same skill as royal tombs? Another mystery is emptiness. Many of these sarcophagi do not contain traces of burials. No bones, no burial objects, as if they were never used as tombs. And then a version appears that these are not tombs, but capsules. Containers in which those who were not human were once stored or transported. Too big, too small, different. Perhaps this is where the answer lies as to why the myths of almost all people speak of gods who came from the sky. Alien skull. UFO blogger Daley Hodges posted a photo. A tiny gray-brown skull on his palm. The forehead is swollen, the back of the head is elongated, the eye sockets are huge, and there is no lower jaw. The author claims that his friend found it in Mexico near an old landfill. This is not a doll or a monkey. The bone is fragile. The structure is like a human, but the proportions are completely different. The photo instantly spread. Someone saw evidence of the grays. Someone is screaming about a viral fake. Doctors, anthropologists have already answered. The photo most likely shows part of the skull of a Cody baby, South American Cody. These animals have a large head box, and the lower jaw often falls off after decomposition, hence the alien appearance. The scale is also eloquent. The length of the skull is only 5 centimeters, not enough for an adult alien. Hodges himself swears that he will conduct an X-ray and DNA test, but until the results are in, he asks to leave a chance for a miracle. The internet, as usual, is divided. Some are catching likes on the real alien, while others remind us that any bone without context is ideal material for a sensation. For now, the most unusual extraterrestrial skull of the season remains without a passport. Either it's a dead coati or another hoax, skillfully photographed against a dark background. The return of the Utsuro-bune. There is a strange entry in Japanese chronicles from 1803. Fishermen from the village of Hariakihara pulled a round lacquered boat the size of a small room out of the water. Inside was a young woman in bright clothes, copper-colored hair, an incomprehensible inscription on the side, and a tightly sealed box that she did not allow anyone to open. The story was quickly added to the local archive, accompanied by drawings, and the object, along with the guest, according to legend, was silently lowered back into the sea. For almost 2 centuries, the event remained folklore, until in 2024, the Ibaraki National Museum found 7 forgotten engravings made by eyewitnesses in a private collection. In them, the boat does not look like a barrel, but like a neat disc with portholes, and the writing along the side resembles a mixture of Sanskrit and Arabic. The museum exhibited the found engravings next to a neat copy of the boat, a disc slightly more than 2 meters, with round windows and a narrow entrance hatch. Scientists argue, some say that before us is an experimental wooden boiler of the Edo era. Others insist that the shape and hermetic assembly are not similar to any known Japanese ship of that time. The story has once again left folklore and entered the field of scientific discussions. And the main one is, could the original lie on the bottom to this day, preserving the secret of the copper box, which the girl never opened? UFOs and fakes. One of the most sensational stories is the so-called autopsy of the Roswell alien. That very video where a strange creature with a huge head lies on the table and doctors pull something out of it. Then in the 90s, the video was shown on television to millions of people. Almost everyone believed it, but then it turned out it was staged. The creator of the video, Ray Santilli, later admitted, yes, the film is a recreation and the real film was allegedly lost. But he still claims that he saw the original and the footage matches what was shown to the CIA employees. And here's what's interesting. Even after admitting to the fake, people continued to believe it. Moreover, this fragment is now being sold as an NFT for $1 million. What is all this for? What does a fake offer? And it offers the main thing: noise, attention, faith, money. The more noise, the harder it is to distinguish the truth. The easier it is to replace reality with speculation. And here's the question: if even lies work to strengthen faith, who and why blurs the lines between facts and fakes? The Kegums incident. This photo, often referred to as the Kegums incident, is said to depict the site of an alleged UFO crash in a forest, which was rumored to have occurred in the Soviet Union in the 1960s. According to popular theories, the incident was kept strictly secret, and the area around the discovery was immediately cordoned off by the military. The object was said to be a metal disc, about 10 meters in diameter, with a smooth surface covered in strange symbols resembling hieroglyphs. Local eyewitnesses, who are now almost impossible to find, claimed that not only strange debris was observed at the crash site, but also corporeal remains that were described as humanoid but not human. In the context of the Cold War, such events were carefully covered up to avoid mass panic or leaks of information about supposed technologies that could give an advantage in the arms race. Conspiracy theorists claim that the crash technology could have been studied and partly used in subsequent military developments. What makes this story even more mysterious are the coincidences with other cases of alleged UFO crashes, such as Roswell in the United States. This has given rise to the hypothesis that such events are part of a global interaction between governments and extraterrestrial civilizations, with each side trying to unravel the secrets of the guests' technology. The veracity of the incident remains in question, but the photographs and descriptions continue to attract the attention of those looking for evidence of an alien presence on Earth. Two-headed alien. A strange mummy with two heads was discovered in Tibet, which was immediately dubbed the two-headed alien. This artifact shocked scientists and fans of mysticism. The mummy looks as if its origins go beyond the earthly, which gives rise to many theories, from mutations to extraterrestrial civilizations. Some researchers believe that this could be a ritual artifact or a cult image created by ancient people to worship unknown forces. Interestingly, the structure of the mummy looks unusual even for mutations known to biology. The proportions of its body and the shape of its head suggest that it could be the embodiment of something mythical or unearthly. Ancient Tibetan legends often mention heavenly beings who visited Earth. Perhaps this artifact is an attempt to depict those whom the ancients considered gods. However, there is also a more mundane version. The mummy may be the result of artificial mummification of two different bodies connected for ritual purposes. Tiny mummy in the Atacama. 20 years ago, in an abandoned mountain town in the Atacama Desert in Chile, the mummified remains of a humanoid just 15 centimeters in size were found. When this skeleton fell into the hands of a private collector in Spain, it sparked controversy about its origins and even appeared in a documentary as possible evidence of alien life. Scientists from California have been able to extract DNA from the bones of a mummy and reconstruct the real and tragic history of this creature, which received the name Ata. It turned out that this is not a guest from another world, but a girl who apparently was born dead or died immediately after birth, with terrifying mutations that determined her unusual physique. Despite the fact that she was only 15 centimeters long, some features of the bones indicated an age of 6 to 8 years. Instead of the usual 12 pairs of ribs, Ata had only 10. The head was elongated and cone-shaped. Professor Harry Nolan, who conducted the study, believes that Ata was stillborn or died immediately after birth. Her deformities were so severe that she could not eat. In her condition, she would have been admitted to a neonatal intensive care unit, but such devices simply were not available at the site where her remains were found. It all started as a story about aliens, but in fact it is a story about a human tragedy. A woman gave birth to a deformed child, which was preserved and sold as a strange artifact. In the end, this turned out to be a person with an amazing genetic history from which we can learn a lot that will help others. This discovery changed archaeology. The 600-year-old Nebra sky disk remains one of the most enigmatic archaeological finds. Inscribed on the UNESCO Memory of the World Register in 2013, this artifact is striking in its design and complex manufacturing technology. Recent research conducted in Germany has shown that the disk was made using a 10-stage hot forging process. Each stage involved heating the metal to 700 degrees Celsius and stress-relieving treatment. This data was obtained using modern techniques such as X-ray spectroscopy and microstructural analysis. Attempts to reproduce the technology have shown that the ancient original methods were superior to modern processing methods. The Nebra sky disk is not only a unique artifact but also proof of the advanced metallurgy knowledge of the time. El Toro artifacts. Hundreds of stone and bone objects are circulating online under the name El Toro. Books made of slabs with embossed covers, masks, figurines with almond-shaped eyes, and tablets with unknown writing. They are supposedly found in the El Toro Hills in Mexico, and the total number of specimens is sometimes estimated at several thousand, sometimes even up to 20,000. Some of the artifacts are indeed skillfully crafted with precise carving and repeating motifs. On the other hand, there are no published excavation reports with coordinates, stratigraphy, accompanying ceramics, or laboratory dating that would allow us to distinguish genuine antiquities from modern artifacts. El Toro artifacts are often compared to the Ica stones from Peru, also a mass collection, also themes of misplaced knowledge, also a controversy over authenticity. El Toro is surrounded by expedition reports from enthusiasts and even mentions of laboratory tests, but verifiable publications in specialized journals and museum attributions are non-existent. Until proper reports and dating are available, it's simply a huge pile of privately owned artifacts, beautiful, of varying sizes, but unsuitable as a source for ancient history. And another important clarification, don't confuse the Mexican El Toro with the Spanish cave, Cueva del Toro. The Spanish site is a classic example of archaeology, layering, context, dating, publications, including works on double-edged bone tools and Neolithic economy. This is precisely what the evidence base looks like, and this is precisely what the Mexican El Toro lacks. UFO on the cover of an 18th century book. The discovery of an image of a UFO on the cover of a book by Johann Funk, published in 1716, has caused widespread controversy among ufologists. This image, depicting a classic flying saucer surrounded by bright lightning, is seen by many as confirmation that alien visitors visited Earth as early as 300 years ago. Despite controversy over whether alien visits actually occurred in the 1700s, the find confirms that people of the time were also interested in the idea of extraterrestrial civilizations. As always, people are divided into types. Some believe in UFOs, others are skeptical about such assumptions. Ufologists wonder about the technological development of aliens. Assuming that they actually visited Earth in the 18th century, how did their technology remain unchanged for 3 centuries? This refers to the shape of an alien ship. Head of a humanoid creature. A couple from Switzerland found a strange head of a humanoid creature with big eyes and a long neck on the riverbank. Photos of the find were published on Reddit with the caption, "Found the head of an alien statue in the river." This post collected more than 61,000 likes and many comments. Although the head really does look like an alien, it was later revealed that this sculpture was made by students many years ago. One of them used silicone molds to create concrete sculptures and covered it with fluorescent paint. When the students moved away, the sculpture was lost or thrown into the river. The mystery of Arkaim. Arkaim, often called the Russian Stonehenge, is one of the most mysterious archaeological sites in Russia. Located in the steppes of the southern Urals, this megalithic complex is striking in its size and precision of planning, which makes it similar to the famous Stonehenge in Great Britain, both in astronomical functions and in geographical latitude. Arkaim is a round fortress with 2 concentric rings of walls and streets connecting dwellings, which were built taking into account the astronomical knowledge of the ancients. Research has shown that the buildings in Arkaim were built in such a way as to observe 18 astronomical events, including solstices and equinoxes. This indicates a high level of astronomical knowledge of the peoples who inhabited this region in the Bronze Age. Arkaim not only attracts archaeologists, but is also a subject of interest for researchers of anomalous phenomena. Unusual magnetic anomalies are recorded in the area of the complex, which sometimes affect the operation of electronic devices. These anomalies, as well as a number of other unexplained phenomena, give rise to various theories, including suggestions that Arkaim could have been used or even created by extraterrestrial civilizations. In addition, the unique architecture and complex water supply system testify to the high level of social organization and engineering skill of its builders. These qualities make Arkaim one of the key Bronze Age monuments in Eurasia. Has the first battle with aliens already happened? On August 26, 1946, an American scientific expedition set out for the South Pole. It was led by naval officer and explorer Admiral Richard Byrd, who took part in the First World War. The expedition involved 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and almost 5,000 U.S. Navy soldiers. The group under the command of the Admiral returned only 9 months later, reporting that it had to engage in battle with the remnants of the Third Reich and possibly aliens. Flying objects attacked the expedition members and caused significant damage to the American group. Byrd in his report claimed to have seen unidentified devices capable of moving at incredible speeds, changing their location almost instantly. At that time, the Admiral's statements, despite his high status, seemed like fiction. However, in 2018, a satellite image revealed a contrail left by something moving at incredible speeds. The trail stretched across the entire Earth, connecting the South and North Poles, which is about 20,000 kilometers. The maximum duration of preservation of the trace and its shape is 30 minutes, while most of it begins to dissipate after 15 minutes. Based on the data obtained, we can say that the object that left the contrail was moving at a speed of at least 80,000 kilometers per hour, which is 10 times higher than the speed of the fastest aircraft existing at the moment. Secret spectra. It would seem that if this is just an exotic visiting comet, scientists would be thrilled with every open file, posting data to archives and debating it at conferences. This is partly true, but the closer you look at the 3I/ATLAS observation history, the more strange locks and restricted access notes there are. European databases show that almost all spectral observations of this object are closed until April 20th to 26. This could be explained by the teams wanting to crunch the numbers undisturbed, but then one particular file appears, blocked until January 1st, 2099. 74 years of silence for a single data packet about a simple comet, a period comparable to the classification of military archives. No official explanation is offered. The protocols contain dry project numbers and references to internal agreements. In such an atmosphere, even the calmest person involuntarily wonders what exactly was seen in the spectra of the interstellar object if only people who have not yet been born are allowed to discuss it. The Moon and its mysteries. We are used to thinking of the Moon as something simple, a night satellite, a beautiful disk in the sky. But the more we study it, the stronger the feeling. Something is wrong here. For starters, its size. The Moon is too big for a satellite. Its diameter is almost a quarter of the Earth. Neither Jupiter nor Saturn nor Neptune have anything like this. This is an anomaly. Moreover, the Moon's orbit is almost perfectly round. Natural bodies do not behave like this. They move in an ellipse. And here it is as if someone corrected the trajectory. Further on, there are craters. The impact craters on the Moon are huge, but none are deeper than 4 kilometers. Even the most colossal collisions did not pierce the crust. Why? As if there is invisible armor under the surface. In the 70s, Soviet engineers said outright, "The Moon behaves as if it were hollow." And confirmation came in a NASA experiment. When a module was deliberately dropped on the Moon, the satellite began to vibrate. Not for a minute, not for 2, for 2 hours. The Moon hummed like a bell. That's what they wrote in the reports. But a rock doesn't behave like that. That's how a hollow structure behaves. The oddities don't end there. We only see one side of the Moon. Scientists call it tidal locking. But why did this happen only here? Why is our satellite forever facing us with one side? And why is the dark side so different? Jagged, destroyed, as if it had been through an ancient catastrophe. And then there are the flares. They've been observed for decades. Bright lights that light up on the surface. Sometimes they last a second, sometimes a whole minute. NASA keeps a catalog, but there's no answer. Gas, volcanism, or working equipment. In 2019, a new discovery was made. Something massive was found under the Moon's southern crater. An object that causes gravitational distortions. Scientists have cautiously suggested that it might be an asteroid stuck in the crust. But it is strange that the Moon survived it without being destroyed. And all this makes us recall the hypothesis of Vassin and Shcherbakov. What if the Moon is artificial? According to their version, it is not a satellite, but an ancient mechanism, with a metal shell, cavities inside, and possibly equipment. Science fiction? Yes, but the facts stubbornly do not fit into a natural picture. The New Puzzle of Teotihuacan. September 2024. A team from the Mexican Institute of Physics places 4 muon detectors under the Pyramid of the Sun, the same cosmic ray X-rays that recently opened the chambers in Kegums. Over the course of 2 months, the devices collect billions of particles and build a 3D shadow of the monument. Instead of a monolith, a strange picture emerges. A dark ribbon goes down from the central shaft, makes 3 perfect clockwise turns, and freezes in a round cavity 10 meters in diameter. The total length of the passage is about 180 meters. The depth of the final chamber is 48 meters below the base of the pyramid. When archaeologists superimposed the spiral on the relief of the slabs of the upper terrace, it turned out that the drawing coincides with the Quetzalcoatl serpent engraved on the southern steps. Coincidence or plan? There are several versions at once. Drainage. The spiral could collect groundwater and drain it into the Sacred Heart. Ritual. Priests descended along the loops of the underground sun, imitating the path of day through night. And the third version is a cache. When Teotihuacan began to die out, the elite could hide archives and relics in the core and fill up the entrance. It is impossible to open the passage with shovels. The arch rests only on its own weight. Touch it, and the whole spiral will collapse. Therefore, archaeologists decided to enter surgically. They will lower a thin probe camera through an old technological well. If the camera suddenly sees mercury or a glint of gold from below, it will be clear that this is not a drain, but an ancient cache. But while the probe is only being prepared, under the main pyramid of Mexico there is still a twisted corridor, which the world did not even suspect for 2,000 years. We've been under surveillance for a long time. If we're looking for signals, it's logical to assume that someone might be looking for us too, but what if they've already found us? In 2020, a group of astronomers published a study that changed the very formulation of the question. Scientists from Cornell University studied the Earth's neighborhoods and identified 1,004 star systems from which we can watch our planet pass across the sun's disk. That is, see the Earth the way we see exoplanets. Their main conclusion is simple. If there is intelligent life in one of these systems, they might know right now that we're here. Moreover, 508 of these star systems are located in such a way that the Earth would be visible against the sun for more than 10 hours at a time, enough to notice an atmosphere with oxygen, methane, and, perhaps, signs of life. They could have spotted us thousands of years ago, watched, waited, or maybe they've already sent a signal that's still on its way. The SETI project is a global network of radio telescopes tracking anomalies and signals from the depths of space. We have listened to thousands of systems, but so far, silence. Modern scientists are cautious but not skeptical. No one laughs at those who say maybe we are not alone, because the number of habitable planets is billions. Mystical figurines. These unusual figurines from the ancient Mexican city of Teotihuacan are rare examples of Aztec art and worldview. Found in 1933 in the Metepec area by an American anthropologist, the figurines depict men and women with opening hollow torsos. Inside are smaller figurines or objects, which causes much debate about their meaning and purpose. Often such figurines are called masters due to their peculiar content. The cavity in the chest area is symbolically closed by a door, which hints at hidden knowledge, a secret meaning, or the concept of the inner self. Perhaps these figurines embody the philosophical concept of Nahual, an inner spirit or companion that accompanied a person in his spiritual quest and on his life's journey. Other interpretations suggest a connection between the figurines and symbols of fertility, education, or spiritual growth. They may have represented social or religious roles, warrior, ruler, merchant, or woman from the elite strata of Teotihuacan society. The fine detailing and the ability to open and close the figurines speaks to the high level of craftsmanship of their creators. This unique design may have symbolized the interaction between the inner and outer worlds, as well as the desire to reveal hidden truths about the nature of man and the world. Indonesian Star Trek. In 1992, geologist Castillo made a discovery that still shocks today. In the province of Kapanga, Indonesia, he was exploring the Satan's Cave in the mountains and found an unusual stone. On its chip were engraved mysterious symbols that resembled a map of the Star Trek. The signs on the stone are strikingly similar to the images on the plaques sent into space by NASA with the Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 probes in the 1970s. The stone depicts a man and a woman holding hands, as well as the sun, stars, and lines resembling routes. Geologists claim that the age of the stone's processing is hundreds of thousands of years. This casts doubt on its terrestrial origin because at that time people, as is assumed, could not have had such knowledge. Conspiracy theorists suggest that aliens received a message from the Pioneer probe but miscalculated and missed the time, ending up on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. Perhaps they got stuck here and left their mark in the form of this stone. Another version says that the stone could have been created by a highly developed civilization that existed in Indonesia long before our era. The map depicts a star system with 1 star and 7 planets, an almost exact reproduction of the solar system. Modern scientists recognize 8 planets, but until recently, Neptune was considered an asteroid. Whoever the creators of the mysterious stone were, their knowledge of the stars remains a mystery, astonishing modern science. Sahara's Eye. This geological structure was seen by astronauts in 1965, and from there its name came. From the air, it looks like a huge eye surrounded by green circles. This is a dolerite intrusion surrounded by stunted vegetation, a rare occurrence in the desert. The astronauts even used it as a reference point because it is the most visible structure in the Sahara. In the center of the object are siliceous breccias, special varieties of sedimentary rocks. This indicates its antiquity, which scientists estimate at millions of years. The oldest ring is about 600 million years old. At first, they thought that this was the place where a meteorite fell, but this theory was not confirmed. Then, scientists suggested that Galber Rishat has a geological origin. New research shows that this structure was formed under the influence of hydrothermal waters. One of the most unique features of the Eye of the Sahara is its ability to change color throughout the day depending on heat emission. And although there is still a lot of controversy and speculation about the origin of this geological miracle, most modern scientists believe that this is the result of erosion after the uplift of a section of the Earth's crust. The mystery of the flying stones. India is always shrouded in secrets and mysteries. In any corner of it, you can encounter something amazing and incredible. Many come here for new experiences, to discover unknown spiritual possibilities in themselves. Once you have visited this amazing country, it is impossible to forget it. One of the mysteries of India is the levitating stones in the small village of Shivapur, which is located 200 kilometers from Bombay. Near the local temple, there are several boulders whose weight exceeds 50 kilograms. These stones, according to local residents, can rise into the air. It takes 11 men to lift the first, heavier stone. They must stand around it and say certain words. After this, the stone begins to levitate and can be held with one finger. The smaller boulder requires 9 men to lift. There is also a third stone weighing over 60 kilograms, which only the monks of the temple can lift. The origin of these stones is mysterious. Some believe they were sent by the gods. Others think they broke off from a nearby rock. A local resident who takes care of the temple claims that the stones break from time to time, and he replaces them with new ones by chipping them from the rock. But even new stones retain their flying properties. Some scientists suggest that ancient people were able to move objects with the power of thought, as, for example, during the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. The knowledge of levitation may have been lost, but sometimes resurfaces in places like Shivapur. Interestingly, in the last century, Edward Leedskalnin, an immigrant from Latvia, used similar methods to build his coral castle in Florida, which only confirms the existence of such knowledge. These unexplained phenomena support the hypothesis of extraterrestrial influence on ancient civilizations, suggesting that some technologies or methods may have been transmitted to humanity by representatives of other worlds. Cubic UFO scared the plane pilot. In February 2020, an aircraft on duty in Colombia collided with an unusual air object. Being at an altitude of more than 9 kilometers, the captain took a mobile phone in order to film a metal object moving in a straight line. Something that looks like a cube has nothing in common with a balloon or other objects capable of being at such a height. The distance from the aircraft to the object has not been established, so its estimated diameter is between 3 and 5 meters. Scientists suggest that extraterrestrial civilizations are afraid of a direct collision with humanity and are not ready for direct contact. The object caught on camera may be analogous to a scout who found himself on Earth in order to observe us from the side. Perhaps the aliens are studying us and are slowly preparing to visit our planet. Is it so? Time will tell, but the experts who evaluated the video did not reach a consensus. The object does not have wings and does not leave a trail, which means it is not a man-made device. Skeptics suggest that the metal cube is just a balloon that was inflated at an altitude of more than 9 kilometers, but physicists are convinced that the low temperature would not allow it to rise so high. Signals on old photographic plates. Sometimes the future hides not in new telescopes, but in old archive boxes. In the United States, photographic plates from the 1950s, old observatory series taken long before the digital age, were recently re-examined. Strange flashes were noticed in these images, small bright dots that appear only in one frame and disappear in the next. Astronomers call such objects transients. Typically, they are defects or rare bursts of cosmic rays. But here a chain began that can no longer be called a coincidence. Scientists compared the dates of these dots' appearance with the nuclear test calendar, and it turned out that the probability of such a flash increased by almost 45% in the 24 hours following the explosion. In other words, the sky literally reacted. And not with the light of the explosion, which couldn't be reflected for 24 hours, but with the appearance of unknown objects, which were recorded on the photographic plates as fast, single-frame pulses. And it gets even stranger. Researchers investigated the UFO reports of those days. They discovered that the more press reports, the more transients in the images. It was as if two independent systems, human eyes and old cameras, were recording the same phenomenon, but from different angles, as if something were reacting to nuclear tests. The transients weren't atmospheric flares, their spectra don't match plasma or light from heated air. They weren't plate defects. Matching between different observatories can't be attributed to emulsion chemistry. And they weren't satellites. In the 1950s, they simply didn't exist in sufficient numbers, and the orbits of the first spacecraft are known down to the second. As a result, the researchers came up with a strange statistic. Every time a person detonated something on Earth, the sky responded. What exactly appeared over the test site on those days? No one knows. But now that we see an object flying near Earth that reacts to solar flares, changes its trajectory, and displays strange signals, these archival images no longer look like a museum exhibit. Fiery teachers. There is a strange coincidence in the iconography of different eras and peoples. The figures of gods, prophets, and teachers of humanity are almost always surrounded by radiance. The Egyptians have solar discs above their heads. The Mayans have halos in the form of flames. In Byzantine iconographic canons, there are golden circles around the face. In India, there are entire auras of fire. The official version sounds simple. It is a symbol of divinity, holiness, inner light, but too many details make you think. On the reliefs of Mesopotamia, the gods are depicted in clothes from which rays seem to emanate. In Peruvian frescoes, the radiance is not smooth, but in straight lines, as if from a light source. And in the text, it is sometimes directly stated, "They shone so that people could not look." Is this a description of an aura? Or is it still light from something material? Lamps, spotlights, helmets? In some images, it is noticeable. The rays do not come from the head, but from an object that resembles a helmet or a mask. The Sumerian gods have enlarged eyes as if behind a transparent visor. In Indian descriptions, the gods descend in sparkling shells where their bodies do not burn from the heat. To the modern ear, this sounds like spacesuits. If you connect all these fragments, the picture becomes different. The fiery teachers could have been real beings who descended to people in protective suits and with light sources. For ancient man, this was a miracle. For us, technology. Baltic disc. 2011. Swedish divers scan the bottom and see a perfect circle, 60 meters in diameter. An even furrow extends from it, as if something slowed down along the seabed for a long time and landed. The photo flies around the media. Underwater flying saucer, Millennium Falcon. Tourists book places on boats. Ufologists are already writing books. 2025. A team of geologists takes an underwater LiDAR scan and conducts their own thorough research. The structure is strange, but inside there is ordinary granite on the sections of the shell of glacial rocks. Simply put, a boulder that rolled ice for 1,000 years until it got stuck in the silt and left a beautiful alien trace. The conclusion can be made as with the findings earlier. Sometimes the perfect plate is just a stone polished by a glacier. But it was this stone that made people dive to the bottom, bring new equipment, and clearly show how science destroys myths and fakes. The stone remained a stone, and the Baltic got its first underwater geopark. How UFOs became a new religion. We live in a world where aliens are no longer science fiction, but almost a habit. Memes, movies, YouTube, Telegram channels, merch. Aliens are not just a topic. They are a cultural phenomenon that has long gone beyond ufology. But how did this happen? It all started in the 20th century, with books, rumors, and strange reports where miraculously surviving footage allegedly showed alien corpses, and classified sources surfaced with confessions about experiments in Area 51. Then there were talk shows, investigations, documentaries, scandals, and all of this ceased to be marginal. It became mainstream. For example, the fake footage of the autopsy of the alien from Roswell, a complete fake made in the 90s, collected millions of ratings. It was exposed. So what? This only strengthened the fans' faith. Aha, so there must be truth if they're trying so hard to hide it. Charles Fort, the father of this whole movement, said back at the beginning of the century, "Science rejects too much, and official explanations are not always the truth." His ideas inspired entire generations of anomaly hunters. He said, if strange things happen, it means we have the wrong picture of the world. Today, science, politics, religion, everything causes skepticism. But aliens, for some reason, they are believed, even more than governments. Reality seems to have changed. UFOs are a new mythology, a new religion. Only instead of angels, grays; instead of prophets, contactees; instead of sacred books, leaked forums, TikTok, and leaked reports. And you know what's scariest? This belief already controls society. In 2023, the U.S. Congress seriously discussed the topic of UFOs. Hearings, reports, generals on the podium. And no one laughed, because the meme became reality. In this world where everything can be fake, aliens became a symbol of the truth, or the search for it. Paradoxical, but true. Elongated skulls. The mystery of the elongated skulls of Paracas continues to stir heated debate among scientists and researchers. These elongated skulls, discovered by archaeologist Julio Tello in 1928 on the Paracas Peninsula in Peru, date back approximately 3,000 years. The skulls are unusually shaped, and although similar finds have been found all over the world, from Rome to the Caucasus, the Paracas skulls are particularly surprising. It is believed that the elongated shape of the skulls was the result of deliberate manipulation, such as tying special bands or boards around the heads of infants. This process, known as cranial deformation, was common among many ancient cultures. Even today, it is practiced by some African tribes. However, it remains a mystery what exactly motivated people everywhere to engage in this practice. One popular hypothesis is that people sought to imitate the gods or guests from heaven who, according to legend, had elongated heads. Another version says that such a shape of the skull could enhance the perception of cosmic energy, which allegedly contributed to spiritual or intellectual development. The peculiarity of the Paracas skulls lies not only in their shape, but also in their volume and structure. Research shows that the volume of the skull is larger than that of ordinary people, and the structure of the bones is different. These anomalies give rise to theories about the extraterrestrial origin of the owners of such skulls. The skulls may belong to representatives of another race or hybrid creatures about which we know little yet. The bodies of extraterrestrial beings. Theories about the appearance of aliens vary. Some believe that they are similar to humans, but with differences, a different skin color or elements of the genome that resemble reptiles or plants. Such images are often found in literature and cinema. For example, in the movies about the Guardians of the Galaxy, aliens are depicted as furry or tree-like humanoids. The raccoon rocket and the bark-covered Groot became the embodiment of this idea. Other researchers and writers believe that it is pointless to build ideas about alien life based on earthly evolution. Polish writer Stanislaw Lem, in his novel Solaris, created a different approach. His alien intelligence is presented as an ocean capable of interacting with people through their memories, providing a chance to correct the past. This became a philosophical response to anthropocentrism in the depiction of aliens. There are also more sinister versions. Some believe that alien life forms may be parasites that use the human body as a habitat. A similar image was embodied in the film Venom, where an extraterrestrial symbiote used a human as a host. Not long ago, Mexican ufologist Jaime Maussan presented remains that, according to him, belong to ancient aliens. These humanoid-like creatures have three-fingered limbs, missing teeth, and unusual physical features. When X-rayed, rare metals such as cadmium and osmium, which are used today in satellite systems, were found in their bodies. An egg-like formation was found in one of the mummies, which further provoked mystery lovers. However, scientists are skeptical of these claims. Earlier, in 2017, Moisson already presented findings that turned out to be the remains of ancient children, not aliens. To confirm or refute the truth of the new claims, serious research will be needed. Until then, this discovery remains a subject of debate between ufologists and the scientific community. Discovery of the oldest nuclear reactor in the world. It's funny, but the first human reactor that produces electricity was created only in 1951. But a stone block in Oklo in Gabon already created nuclear energy 2 billion years ago. The history of the discovery began in 1972 when French scientists took a sample of uranium ore from a deposit in Gabon to test its uranium composition. And here scientists have come across a surprising discovery. The uranium sample contained less uranium-235 than usual. This meant that about 200 kilograms of uranium-235 disappeared somewhere in the mine. As it turned out, the missing uranium went through the process of nuclear fission and split into other atoms. It turns out that nature accidentally created a nuclear reactor operating under very specific conditions necessary for the continuous release of energy. And it really happened. First, there was enough uranium-235 in the ore to keep the reaction going. Second, uranium-235 naturally decays, releasing a neutron that initiates the fission process. And finally, there was enough underground water at the site of the reactor which slowed down the neutrons and regulated the reaction. Secret UFO video hidden by the U.S. government. On November 23, 2019, near the southern border between Arizona and Mexico, Department of Homeland Security agents flew aircraft to locate and arrest smugglers transporting illegal substances into the United States. At some point, their infrared camera captured something that had a rather strange shape. A mysterious object visually reminiscent of a rubber duck amazed observers and then the American government. In September 2021, a secret video was given to an expert studying aliens. After receiving the video from the Department of Homeland Security, Andy Marshall was shocked to see an object that resembled a rubber duck. First appearing on the internet, the video amazed viewers with the fact that the unknown object is about 2 meters long and moves without any wings or traces of exhaust gases. An object resembling a duck flew in a certain direction for about an hour, and the video of the official federal agency does not allow one to think that this was a montage. The ufology community takes the video extremely seriously, believing that it proves the existence of UFOs. Experts who analyze the recording also differ in their opinions. It is known that unidentified flying objects have common behavioral characteristics, including speed, camouflage, and altitude. As for the so-called rubber duck, it moved too slowly, covering only 15 kilometers in half an hour. Such wind speeds are normal in this area, so it is possible that the secret UFO video is just an object that was picked up by air currents. Islands that don't exist. The history of cartography is full of mysteries. Old sea charts from the 17th to 18th centuries show islands that don't exist today. Hundreds of sailors swore that they saw land, landed on the shore, even described plants and animals. But after decades, these islands disappeared. Modern satellites confirm that there is only empty ocean in the marked places. The most famous example is Sandy Island in the Coral Sea. It was put on maps for almost 200 years. In 2012, Australian researchers decided to double-check the point and found nothing. Not a piece of land, not a trace of a reef, just a depth of 1.5 kilometers. But how then to explain hundreds of records of captains? A mass hallucination or a mistake by all at once? There are dozens of such cases. The islands of Brabant, Frederick, Emerald, which existed for centuries and suddenly disappeared. Scientists attribute everything to measurement errors, but the sailors left detailed reports, with drawings, descriptions of flora and fauna. Either the entire world navigation has been wrong for centuries, or we are faced with a phenomenon for which we simply have no explanation. There are versions that these were not islands, but objects that could rise from the water and go back into the depths. Perhaps volcanic formations, perhaps something else. Some ufologists believe that these could be bases or ships of giants that were disguised as land. Sulfur under the wheel. The Curiosity rover rolls along the bottom of an old riverbed in the Gades Vallis Canyon. The stones are just stones, nothing special. One of the boulders cracks under the wheel of a nearly 1,000-kilogram machine, and a pure yellow glow flares up inside. This is not dust, not salt, but elemental sulfur in crystals. This has never been found on Mars before. Sulfur was known only in the form of sulfates, which are formed upon contact with water. But pure sulfur appears under special, almost homemade conditions, as if someone carefully squeezed all the excess out of the rock. For science, this is a gift on two fronts at once. Firstly, sulfur is an important part of the amino acid chain. Without it, there is no protein on Earth. Secondly, the very fact of its existence breaks the previous models of Martian geology. Now, the area where such stones are lying around is becoming a priority point. We need to drill, observe, and build new climate scenarios. A mystery in the Amazon jungle. Padre Crespi, an Italian missionary who spent most of his life serving in Ecuador, became one of the most enigmatic figures of the 20th century thanks to his extraordinary collection of artifacts. Working with the Shuar tribes in the Ecuadorian jungle, he acquired many ancient objects that some researchers believed could be evidence of an ancient, highly advanced civilization, and perhaps even contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Crespi's collection included strange metal plates engraved with symbols reminiscent of ancient writing, figurines depicting creatures with unusual features, and objects that many described as technologically sophisticated. Of particular intrigue were metal reliefs depicting creatures with elongated skulls, stars, and scenes reminiscent of space travel. Interestingly, there were no known civilizations in the region that could produce such complex items. Rumors about the collection spread after some visitors, including researchers, claimed to see evidence of extraterrestrial influence in it. Some of the artifacts were said to be made of metals that could not be identified. Crespi, however, was not looking for fame. He claimed to accept these items from local tribes in exchange for aid and food. The collection's connection to extraterrestrial civilizations becomes even more interesting when considering the mystery of the tunnels beneath Ecuador that are the subject of legend. The tunnels, known as the Teos system, are said to contain a library of metal books. Some theorists suggest that these tunnels were a base for an ancient race, possibly of extraterrestrial origin. The Crespi collection could have been part of these treasures. Unfortunately, after the death of Padre Crespi in 1982, the collection was destroyed by fire or stolen, and its fate remains unclear. What do you think? Could a missionary become the custodian of traces of an ancient space civilization hidden in the Amazon jungle? Indian airplanes. Amazing artifacts known as Indian airplanes have been found in Mexico and South America. These miniature gold figures, dating back hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, are striking in their detail. At first glance, they are toys, but their shape is too reminiscent of modern aircraft such as space shuttles or airplanes. Scientists were especially drawn to the tail rudders, symmetrical notches on the wings, and other elements that would have no practical use in a toy. The question arises, what was the basis for creating these figures? The only plausible explanation is that the craftsmen copied what they saw. Perhaps these artifacts are a reflection of real events when the inhabitants of ancient America observed the flights of mysterious devices. Some researchers associate these finds with theories about ancient astronauts, claiming that aliens, the Anunnaki or representatives of another civilization, visited Earth and left their traces. The mystery of these little planes is enhanced by another fact. Modern engineers have been able to create models based on these artifacts that, with the addition of an engine, are actually capable of flying. Is this a coincidence, an ancient myth, or evidence of technology that came from other planets? Cave paintings of Valcamonica. In the Valcamonica Valley located in northern Italy, there are over 200,000 cave paintings created by various cultures over the past 8,000 years. These engravings provide unique evidence of ancient civilizations, depicting their rituals, social structure, and daily life. However, among the many traditional images of animals, dancing people, and symbols, there are several engravings that are of particular interest to researchers. Some of them look like figures dressed in strange costumes, reminiscent of spacesuits with details similar to helmets, antennas, and other devices. These drawings have given rise to much speculation. Some argue that they may have been created after contact between the ancient inhabitants of Valcamonica and alien civilizations. Such theories often rely on the appearance of these figures, arguing that ancient people may have depicted extraterrestrial beings or even astronauts they encountered. However, most scholars are inclined to believe that these engravings may represent ritual or symbolic images, perhaps associated with religious beliefs or rituals of the time. Here, scientists always have one opinion. If a find cannot be explained, it means it is connected either with something extraterrestrial or with an ancient ritual. The clearest photograph of a UFO. On September 4, 1971, in the northern highlands of Costa Rica, photographer Sergio Loaiza was conducting aerial photography of Lake Cote for the National Geographic Institute. Using a special mapping camera that takes photos at 13-second intervals, he did his job, unaware that one of the frames would be unique. Upon returning to the laboratory, Sergio checked the photographs and noticed in one of them a mysterious round metal object located on the right side of the photograph. It is noteworthy that an object resembling a flying saucer was not detected in either the previous or subsequent frames. For some time, the National Geographic Institute tried to hide the discovery, prohibiting Sergio and his colleagues from talking about the incident. A metallic flying object with a diameter of more than 18 meters was a closely guarded secret. But in 1979, a photograph appeared in an Argentine newspaper and was analyzed by experts. Soon, Costa Rica declared the photo as official confirmation of the existence of a UFO. Despite many years of study and debate among researchers in this area, no one has been able to say what kind of object this is. Skeptics suggested that the object on the right side of the photo was some kind of debris or stain that got onto the film while working with photographs. In 2021, a family friend was able to obtain the original photo in order to scan it using modern technology. This made it possible to digitize the image, making it clearer and more detailed. This allowed skeptics to see the saucer-shaped object at a higher resolution. The updated image allowed us to discard a number of banal assumptions and theories, since this was not a stain or chip on the camera glass. So what was it? Share your guesses in the comments. DNA that doesn't match. We are used to thinking that the human genetic code has been studied inside and out. But in fact, there are still mysteries in our DNA that no one can answer. Scientists call them unexplained insertions, fragments that do not match the evolutionary line. They do not resemble primate DNA, nor known viral traces, nor random mutations, as if these pieces of code came from somewhere outside. There is a hypothesis that some of these sequences could have come to us through ancient contacts, with viruses or even with extraterrestrial microorganisms. It sounds fantastic, but in recent years, scientific journals have openly discussed the idea of panspermia. Life could have been brought to Earth by meteorites or comets. And if so, then it is possible that part of our genetic code is indeed alien. Some researchers go even further. They claim that there are structures in the human genome that are too ordered to be an accident, as if someone left a mark, a genetic watermark. Naturally, official science does not support such statements, but the very idea that we can have an alien trace encoded in us turns our understanding of man upside down. And then we must ask the question, who are we really? The result of random evolution or the bearers of a message left by someone who lived long before us? Unknown lunar material. When China brought back the first ever samples from the far side of the moon, they expected to find ordinary regolith, fused by meteorite impacts. But among the 5,000 fragments, 7 samples were discovered that defied scientists' expectations. They contained excessive amounts of olivine, a mineral characteristic of meteorites but not lunar rock. Chemical analysis revealed that these fragments did not match any known type of lunar mineral. Comparison of iron, manganese, nickel, and silicon isotopes yielded an unexpected result. The material was identical to Ci chondrites, the most water-rich and rarest meteorites in the solar system. On Earth, such meteorites are almost never preserved. They are porous, brittle, and soft. They would not survive atmospheric entry. On the moon, it's a different story. Without air or braking, they arrive at full speed, melt, and instantly solidify, preserving their structure. These 7 fragments are the first confirmed case of Ci chondrites being found on the moon in an unaltered state. And most importantly, there were more of them than expected. It is estimated that up to a third of all meteorites that have ever fallen to the moon could be of this type. This is not just a rarity, it is the remnant of a massive bombardment that occurred when the Earth and Moon were just forming. But the most interesting thing is something else. CI chondrites are the leading candidate for the role of carriers of water and organic matter in the early solar system. And if there are so many of them on the moon, then part of that history was recorded there. Not on Earth, where tectonics in the atmosphere destroy everything, but on the far side of the satellite, which served as a kind of archive for billions of years. The irony is that while we are debating whether the moon is artificial or not, it is the very first to yield material that defies conventional models of the origin of water and, perhaps, life itself. The flesh of the fish god. The Dogon people live in the cliffs of Bandiagara. Once every 60 years, they hold the Sigi festival. The main ritual is to bring out a huge mask of Nommo. According to legend, Nommo is an amphibious creature. It once flew in a copper egg that thundered like a thunderstorm, fell into the lake, and came out of the capsule half man, half fish. Nommo showed people star drawings. It indicated that next to the bright Sirius there is another, dark and very heavy star. Astronomers discovered this white dwarf, Sirius B, only in the 19th century, but the Dogon talked about it long before telescopes. So that his lesson would not be forgotten, Nommo, according to myth, shared flesh, gave people pieces of his skin as sacred food. That is why the Dogon still call his power Nyama no Mu, life inside the fish god. They keep clay tablets with a pair of stars in secret sanctuaries. Scientists still cannot understand whether this is ancient knowledge or a late hint from missionaries, but the Dogon themselves are sure. The copper egg really did fly in and will return one day when the time comes for the next Sigi. The history of UFOs is always a mixture of fear, technology, and myths. Let's keep this in mind and move on. Mysterious mask. A strange iridium artifact found in Florida challenges traditional ideas about ancient civilizations. According to researchers, this object is 12,000 years old and is made of iridium, a metal that is extremely rare on Earth and most often found in meteorites. The artifact is striking in its delicacy and skillful processing, which suggests that the ancient craftsmen had technologies that were significantly ahead of their time. An image is engraved on the surface of the object, reminiscent of the deity Viracocha, known in the Inca culture as the creator of all things. According to legend, Viracocha came from Lake Titicaca, bringing light and knowledge. This image may be evidence of a connection between ancient peoples and an extraterrestrial civilization, which would explain the use of rare meteorite material to create this artifact. Historians believe that this object was stolen by Spanish conquistadors in 1715 and taken away on the ship La Concepcion. The ship sank in a storm, leaving much of its cargo, including other artifacts, on the ocean floor. The mask washed up on the beach and is believed by experts to be just a small part of the $5 billion lost treasure. When we hear the word UFO, the 20th century immediately pops into our heads. Roswell, movies, tinfoil hats. But the truth is that people saw unidentified objects long before the era of television and aviation. We have documented cases dating back to the times of ancient Rome. Chronicles recorded fiery shields, flying ships, strange creatures descending from the sky, and even abductions in the clouds. All this was recorded not by science fiction writers, but by historians, monks, and officials. In the 4th century AD, the Roman chronicler Julius Obsequent describes dozens of such cases in his book Liber Prodigiorum. Flaming spheres, glowing ships, and creatures descending from the sky were allegedly seen over Rome. At least this is how eyewitnesses perceived it. Pliny the Elder also mentions a mysterious burning shield that hovered over the city during the Second Punic War. And this is not an isolated case. Similar descriptions are found in the chronicles of Ireland, China, India. What was it? A coincidence in symbolism? A mass hallucination? Or did we really observe the same phenomenon? Just call it differently in different eras? Once upon a time, they were gods then, angels. Today, aliens. But the essence is probably the same. The Codex that saw the future. A 12th century Mayan scroll, long considered a collection of incomprehensible symbols, is housed in a Dresden museum, until scientists realized it was a highly accurate ancient algorithm for predicting solar eclipses. The Maya took a cycle of 405 lunar months and noted 38 new moons during which the sun could disappear. But their genius lay elsewhere. They regularly reset the calendar by 223 or 358 months, preventing the error from accumulating. Thus, the table remained accurate for centuries. Modern astrophysicists have verified the model. They compared the codex with 145 actual eclipses observed by the Maya. Everything matched. Moreover, this method can be used today simply by continuing their calculations. For the Maya, an eclipse was a sign from the gods, but the calculations themselves are pure mathematics, constructed without telescopes or instruments, only observations and memory. And now it is becoming clear. The Dresden Codex is not an ancient relic, but proof that man is capable of understanding the rhythms of the universe even without technology. Gobi astronaut. In 1834, in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, the famous English explorer and cartographer Charles Edwin discovered a mysterious cave in the rock. Inside the cave was an unusually large skeleton, almost 5 meters in length, with a proportionately enlarged skull and curved ribs. Next to the skeleton lay metal objects severely distorted by corrosion, but one object attracted the attention of scientists: a stone slab with a map of the starry sky and directions that did not correspond to known star systems. The plate, according to Edwin, was not just an artifact but a tool for navigation, or part of an ancient astronomical device. Interestingly, research has shown that the slab material contains rare earth elements that are not common to the region where the cave was found. This gave rise to speculation about the possible extraterrestrial origin of both the slab itself and the creature whose remains lay nearby. Further examination of the stone slab revealed that the cartographic markings on it could have been used for navigation in outer space, suggesting that the creature could have been a pilot or explorer from a distant star system. Scientists have suggested that the creature's death could have been the result of the crash of its ship, parts of which could have been scattered across the desert and buried under layers of sand for centuries. This discovery has remained little known due to political and scientific disputes over the origins and meaning of the artifacts found, but it continues to cause controversy among scientists and adventurers seeking to uncover the secrets of ancient civilizations. Alien artifacts on Earth. History keeps finds that do not fit into any chronology. In Turkey, in the temple complex of Göbekli Tepe, there are columns with carved drawings of animals and abstract symbols. They are about 12,000 years old. Officially, at that time, people did not yet know either agriculture or architecture. But here we see an engineering concept and symbolism that has not been fully deciphered. Who built this complex, and why was it later buried, as if they were trying to hide it? In South America, in Sacsayhuaman, giant stone blocks are fitted to each other so tightly that it is impossible to push even a blade between them. Stones weighing hundreds of tons are laid with perfect precision and with polygonal edges. Modern technology has difficulty repeating such joints. This means that 500 years ago, the Incas had something that they themselves called the technology of the gods. On the other side of the world, in Baalbek, Lebanon, lies a stone known as the Southern Megalith. It weighs over 1,000 tons. Until now, no one has explained how ancient builders could have moved it. But the fact remains, this block is processed, and it was clearly an attempt to use it in construction. The only question is by whose hands. Similar finds include the Ural metal spirals, the megalithic platforms of Tiwanaku, and perfectly drilled holes in the stones of Egypt, leaving the feeling of a high-precision machine at work. Every culture has artifacts that seem to have wandered from the wrong time. Scientists explain this by primitive technologies, coincidence, and a play of nature. But then why do such coincidences repeat themselves all over the planet, in different eras and among different peoples? The version that these are traces of strangers is convenient not because it is sensational, but because too much begins to fit into one picture. And if these are indeed artifacts left by someone else, then their purpose could be simple: to show that we are not the first, and that everything we build today is just a faint echo of what was already here thousands of years ago. They were looking at the sky long before us. If you think that the history of UFOs began with the flying saucers of the 40s, you've missed a couple of millennia. Sumerian priests, 2nd millennium BC, write down in cuneiform black meteors changing shape. For them, these are divine signs, but the essence is familiar. Something appears in the sky, and there are no words for it. Nuremberg, April 14th, 1561. At dawn, residents see an air battle. Hundreds of balls, crosses, and a black dart falling beyond the city walls. Artist Hans Glaser carves the scene on a sheet of paper. The true meaning is known only to God. We would call it a mass UFO sighting, but back then it was an omen. Mount Rainier, June 24, 1947. Pilot Kenneth Arnold reports 9 shiny objects jumping like saucers on the water. Newspapers confuse the metaphor and introduce the word flying saucer into circulation. Thus begins the modern era of UFOs. 3,500 years have passed from signs to newspapers, and the questions are still the same. What flies above our heads, and why does each generation see this as its own sign? Religion, UFOs, and space mythology. Today, we divide the world into believers and skeptics, but there is one area where faith and science are strangely intertwined. This is ufology. Essentially, UFOs are a new form of an old religion, only instead of gods, creatures from other star systems. Belief in aliens has become what belief in angels used to be. They come from the sky, they are higher in intelligence than us, and often bring revelations. Philosopher Paul Kurtz called ufology the mythology of the space age. He said people need to feel that they are not alone, that someone is watching and perhaps guiding us. In the past, God did this. Today, space brothers. Psychologist Carl Jung wrote back in the 50s that UFO images are projections of the collective unconscious. Like if in antiquity a person saw a shining angel in the sky, today he will see an alien ship there. The only difference is in the cultural interpretation, but the archetype is the same. Contact with something higher. But there are those who have gone further. Since the 70s, real UFO religions have begun to appear in the world. For example, the movement of Rael, the founder of the Temple of the Elohim. He claimed that he personally met aliens and even visited their planet. And there are dozens of such movements. People sincerely believe that we are a product of genetic engineering created by an extraterrestrial civilization. Some are waiting for the second coming, some the return of their creators. Skeletons of giants. Strange notes can be found in the archives of the 19th and 20th centuries. Skeletons up to 3 meters tall were found in the burial mounds of North America. In the Andes, archaeologists spoke of jaws and skulls too large for a human, but almost all of these finds disappeared. Some blame the church, others blame state institutions that cleaned up inconvenient evidence. Myths of different peoples repeat the same thing. The Sumerians wrote about the Anunnaki, tall as towers. The Bible mentioned the Nephilim, sons of God who took earthly women for themselves. Indian tribes told of battles with giants who came from heaven and ate human flesh. Scientists explain the legends as fantasies and mistakes. But why is this motif found among peoples who are not related to each other? And why is it always associated with heaven and gods? If giants really existed, they could have been either another branch of humanity or hybrids of humans and aliens. In that case, the history of our planet is not only the evolution of Homo sapiens, but also coexistence with those who were much larger and stronger. The Shroud of Turin and the UFO connection. This mysterious Christian relic is of interest not only to religious communities, but also to paranormal researchers and ufologists. This 4-meter-long linen cloth contains the imprint of a human body, supposedly crucified, which is believed to be associated with Jesus Christ. The relic is kept in the Turin Cathedral and has caused endless debate about its authenticity. Scientifically, radiocarbon dating indicates its medieval origin, but there are theories linking it to divine or even extraterrestrial intervention. The uniqueness of the image on the shroud is difficult to explain. It was not painted with a brush, but looks like an imprint resembling a photographic negative, which is incredible for the technology of that time. The connection with UFOs and alien theories arises from the hypothesis that the shroud could be a product of highly developed technology. Ufologists claim that the process of creating this imprint could be associated with the release of powerful energy or a light pulse, reminiscent of modern laser technology. Some believe that the resurrection of Jesus, accompanied by a miraculous phenomenon, could be the result of the intervention of an extraterrestrial civilization that passed on its knowledge to humanity. However, these are just theories. UFOs of the Third Reich. If the whole conversation about ancient UFOs seems too mythical, then this story is closer to our time and much more frightening, because we will talk about technologies that were allegedly developed in Nazi Germany in the last years of the war, and about the secret that neither the Allies nor history could take away. The Nazis really did create incredible things. from the first ballistic missiles to jet aircraft. But there is a separate layer of theories according to which flying machines of unimaginable shape and power were developed in the hidden bunkers of the Reich. They are called Haunebu, Vril, and the most mysterious of them, Die Glocke, the bell. The bell is not just technology, it is a legend surrounded by rumors, disappearances, and strange deaths. According to rumors, the object was a metal machine about 4 meters high, shaped like a bell, which could distort space and time, an anti-gravity engine based on some black energy from which the project's employees died. Some claim that Die Glocke disappeared along with the SS elites who went to Antarctica to a mysterious zone called New Swabia. There, in the inaccessible icy depths, a base was allegedly built, from where a new era began. According to other versions, the bell was found by the Americans and transported to the United States, hence the strange leaps in technology after 1945. It is hard to believe until you start looking at memoirs, classified documents, and strange activity in the Antarctic region in the late 40s. Some even link it to Operation High Jump, the largest polar expedition of the U.S. military, the purpose of which was officially research, but according to unofficial data, the interception of surviving Nazis with UFO technology. Historians, of course, deny all this, but the question remains, where did dozens of scientists, engineers, and prototypes disappear to? Why is there so little information about this, even after almost 80 years? Monolith in the middle of the desert. In November 2020, in the Red Rock Desert of southern Utah, a helicopter crew and biologists were counting livestock when they noticed something startling. Approaching the mysterious object, they discovered a large, shiny silver object located in a canyon inaccessible to humans. Utah authorities tried to keep the discovery a secret, but soon data about it was leaked on social networks. People struck by the object called it the Utah Monolith, a remnant of aliens. A mysterious metal monument that found itself in the middle of the desert has become the subject of fantasies and the rich imagination of people who believe in the existence of more intelligent civilizations living on other planets. It was assumed that this monolith was left by an alien spaceship so that they could contact us. Many were convinced that the monolith was built from alien building materials. The materials have unique properties that are not found in nature on our planet. The metal and ceramic composite is capable of absorbing radar waves. It is known that alien ships with anti-gravity properties can have a similar alloy. Some believe that the U.S. government not only knows about these materials, but is also using the remains of alien ships to create the next generation of weapons. Experts carefully checked the monolith to determine the type of metal and also tried to find cavities in the mysterious object. Despite all the theories and speculation on social networks, scientists are convinced that the monolith was created by man and perhaps placed in the canyon only to become a manifestation of the beauty of a work of art. Mars, our second home? It seems that just a little bit more, and we will really get to Mars. SpaceX is already building rockets for flights, NASA is testing life support systems, China is preparing for its missions. Loud plans are in the news. The first people will land on the red planet in the coming decades. Colonies, domes, resource extraction, greenhouses. It all sounds like the beginning of a new era. But Mars has its dark sides. Radiation will kill a person in a few months. The atmosphere consists almost entirely of carbon dioxide, and sandstorms can last for weeks. To survive there, humanity will have to not only build bases, but completely rebuild the very idea of life. This is not moving to a new land. This is existence on a hostile planet. And yet the main question is different. What if we are not the first there? Photos from Mars rovers again and again cause controversy. Strange stone formations like ruins, objects similar to statues or mechanisms. Scientists call it pareidolia, the way our brains see familiar shapes. But if even some of these finds are real, then Mars's history could be much more eventful. And maybe when we get there, we won't build a new home. We'll just return to the old one. Singing Temple Underground. Imagine descending 3 floors under the Maltese soil in Hal Saflieni. The corridors were carved out 5,000 years ago, but the main magic is in the Oracle Hall. A whisper there turns into a hum, and a low male voice at a frequency of about 111 Hz makes the walls vibrate so much that the chest trembles. Scientists have checked. This is exactly the resonance of the human body. A minute and a half, and you feel like the sound is coming from inside the bones. In the fall of 2024, Italian acoustics illuminated the temple with a laser scanner and found another cavity behind a filled-in manhole. It also sings at the same 111 hertz. It turns out that the ancient masters deliberately carved out a whole chain of sound rooms. The priest said one word, and the vibrations rolled throughout the hippodrome, putting those present into a light trance. A ritual does not need better technology. The chamber is not being cleared yet for fear of collapsing the vaults, but they are planning to launch a thin microphone probe. If anything other than stone is found there, figurines, vessels, maybe bones, it will become clear that this was not just a crypt, but a laboratory of ancient sound. For now, under a quiet tourist street lives the oldest speaker on the planet, tuned 5,000 years ago and still working without a single crack. There is only one question. How could people 5,000 years ago so accurately calculate the acoustics they needed in the cave? Heading for the moon. The longer 3I/ATLAS was observed, the stronger the feeling became that its trajectory was heading too confidently toward the moon. Skeptics attributed this to simple geometry. Most interstellar objects cross the plane of the ecliptic, but later calculations revealed a far more disturbing detail. The object wasn't simply passing by, it was slowing down. And it was doing so precisely where a typical comet would accelerate under the influence of gravity. At that moment, the old debate about how natural the moon itself was resurfaced. Over the decades, too many oddities had accumulated. Its perfectly round shape, its synchronous rotation without the slightest glitch, the incredible density of its crust, and those seismic signals that make the lunar surface ring like a metallic shell. These anomalies are usually mentioned separately without any attempt to integrate them into a larger picture. But when an interstellar object begins to behave as if it chooses the moon as its final destination, all these details cease to seem random. Scientists cautiously stated, 3I/ATLAS is showing signs of controlled deceleration. Ufologists put it more simply, it's heading where something already exists. And old theories about the moon being an ancient mechanism or even an artificial body suddenly cease to sound like science fiction. If everything we observe is truly not random, then the logic is simple. The ship is flying to a specific point. Stone giants in Kazakhstan. The Valley of Balls on the Mangistau Peninsula in Kazakhstan is a mysterious place that amazes tourists and scientists with its unusual landscape. There are huge stone balls scattered across the steppes and slopes. Some of them are several meters in diameter, which makes them especially impressive. One of the most common hypotheses for the appearance of these unusual formations is a natural phenomenon associated with geological processes. Researchers believe that the balls could have formed as a result of so-called concretion processes. This occurs when mineral particles settling from water begin to concentrate around a solid core, such as an organic residue or a stone particle. Over time, these formations increase, taking on an almost perfect spherical shape. There is also a theory that the balls are associated with tectonic activity. During faults in the Earth's crust, electrical discharges are released, which can contribute to the formation of spherical objects in layers of sedimentary rocks. Some scientists hypothesize the biogenic origin of the balls. They suggest that their core could have been colonies of ancient microorganisms or plankton that existed millions of years ago in warm water bodies. When the waters receded, the balls appeared on the surface where further erosion gave them a finished look. Visually, the Valley of Balls resembles scenes from science fiction films. These stone giants, surrounded by the harsh nature of Mangistau, create an almost unearthly atmosphere, beckoning with its mystery. The four-eyed figurine. This mysterious figurine, known as the four-eyed, was found in what is now Serbia. The age of the artifact is estimated at over 7,000 years, making it one of the oldest finds associated with the pre-literate culture of the Balkans. The figurine depicts a humanoid with four eyes, or perhaps elements resembling a mask. There is a hypothesis that these four eyes are actually part of a mask or headdress, and the figurine itself could depict not a real creature, but a mythical or divine creature revered in the society of that time. There is even a bold suggestion that it could be something resembling a spacesuit, hinting at contact with something extraterrestrial. Although this, of course, remains in the realm of fantasy. Little is known about the purpose of the figurine. Perhaps it was used in rituals or was a symbol of a protector or patron. This artifact leaves more questions than answers and continues to stir debate among archaeologists and mystery lovers. The four-eyed one is one of those rare artifacts that not only reveals fragments of the past to us, but also excites our imagination. 70,000-year-old bracelet. Scientists believe that this bracelet, 70,000 years old, was created by the Denisovans, an ancient species of hominids, close but different from Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. If this is confirmed, the date of creation of the bracelet will have to be pushed back 30,000 years. The bracelet was discovered in Siberia, and perhaps it will change our understanding of the development of ancient man. It is already forcing scientists to reconsider known levels of technology. For example, a bracelet has a hole made by drilling and sawing. Dark matter, dark life. We don't see 90% of the universe. Everything we know, stars, planets, galaxies, is just a small part. Scientists call the rest dark matter and dark energy. We know that it exists. Its gravity keeps galaxies from collapsing. Its influence can be felt in space, but we don't know what it's made of. The most disturbing thing about this story is that dark matter is invisible to our instruments. It passes through us, through the Earth, through every atom, and we don't feel anything. But what if it can form structures? What if there are worlds inside this invisible framework that we simply don't notice? Some physicists admit that dark matter can interact with itself, forming complex systems. This means that there could be something like dark biology there, life that exists in another phase of reality. It's not made of carbon, not of silicon, but of something that has no shape at all for us. Then our familiar world is just a thin layer on the surface of a deeper universe. And it is possible that right now we are surrounded by this invisible life. It moves nearby, passes through walls and cities, looks at us, and we are not even able to understand what exactly surrounds us. And the question in this case sounds harsher than usual. What is scarier? To meet aliens on another planet, or to find out that they have been living nearby all the time, just in another layer of our reality? Glass worms under Antarctica. In February 2025, the Japanese Chimu ice probe project drilled through the Ross Sea ice shelf. At a depth of 820 meters, the camera came across strange threads, transparent as thick as hair, stretching through ice crystals, bending like living ones. The probe tried to pick them up. The thread crunched and broke, leaving fragments like the thinnest glass. Chemical analysis showed almost pure quartz with microparticles of magnesium and sodium. Geologists know about silicate glasses in lava, but in deep ice and even at -20 degrees Celsius, no one expected this. The first version is that subglacial salt lakes emit silicic acid, which hardens and grows into fibers. A kind of natural process of fiber drawing, only at sub-zero temperatures. Another version is this. Under a thick ice cap, the pressure reaches approximately the same level as the ocean depth, and the shelf constantly trembles from tides and cracks. In these conditions, dissolved silicon could crystallize not as ordinary grains, but stretch into ultra-thin quartz fibers, a natural glass mineral, albeit extremely rare. But there is an interesting detail. The fiber structure is multi-layered. The core and shell are of different densities, as if made for the conductivity of light, literally a natural optical cable. In the laboratory, an infrared beam was passed through the thread, approximately at a wavelength of 1.3 microns, the same used in optical fiber. The light passed almost without loss. That is, this cable was formed by itself in nature, but behaves almost like a man-made optical fiber. For now, glass worms are geological exotica. But if we imagine that a warm hydrothermal jet once blew beneath the ice, it would be an ideal place for hidden bio or even techno activity. The team is already planning a second descent to take a long, whole sample and check for foreign impurities in the shell. If traces of organic matter are found, or more frighteningly, microbial backlighting, Antarctica could get its first real, rather than fantasy, cable of communication with other forms of life or engineering. The mysterious disappearance of an Inuit village. In November 1930, a hunter named Joe LaBelle, well known among the local Inuit tribes, went to a small fishing village on the shores of Lake Anjikuni in northern Canada. The village was known for its hospitality, and Lebel expected to spend the night there, warm up, and communicate with the locals. However, to his surprise, he found the village completely empty. All the dwellings were in their places. Personal belongings, tools, and even prepared food remained in the houses, but there were no people anywhere. The hunter's greatest horror was caused by the dogs. Local sled dogs, abandoned on a leash, lay dead from hunger. This was especially strange since the Inuit always treated their dogs with great respect because they were indispensable for survival in the harsh climate. There were no signs of a fight, robbery, or natural disasters in the village. It looked as if the people had disappeared in an instant. The most mystical thing about this story is the disappearance of bodies from the graves. All the graves in the local cemetery were opened, and the remains of the deceased were gone. Joe Lebel contacted the police, and soon a search operation began. However, neither the bodies nor any traces of the missing people were ever found. The story became public, and speculation and rumors began. Locals claimed that shortly before the disappearance of the village, they saw strange glowing lights in the sky that hovered over the lake. These reports gave rise to many theories, including the intervention of extraterrestrial forces. There are also suggestions about a mass migration of residents, perhaps due to a lack of resources or the impact of a mysterious epidemic. However, no traces of a mass exodus were found. Some associate this case with the Inuit myths about the Tunit spirits, an ancient people who, according to legend, could take people to the spirit world. Other explanations include mysterious atmospheric phenomena or even time portals. Almost a century later, the disappearance of the Inuit from the village of Anjikuni remains one of the strangest and most inexplicable mysteries in Canadian history, one that still excites researchers and mysticists today. Laladoff Plate. The Laladoff Plate is a stone dish that is about 12,000 years old. It depicts a disc resembling a UFO and a creature very similar to the modern idea of aliens. You can also consider a spiral galaxy. According to scholar David Gaiman, the disc was purchased from the city of Mussoorie in North India and belonged to the strange Zopas people, who used such discs during religious ceremonies. However, he later admitted that he made this whole story up, including the creation of a sketch of the plate, which his friend then translated into black and white. Amazing artifacts constantly remind us that we still don't know much about the place where we live. But we know for sure that earthly riddles will sooner or later be solved. And while the secrets are not revealed and the inhabitants of other worlds are not discovered, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Watch this video as well about the findings frightening scientists around the world. See you on Kurtop. Thanks for your views. Bye everyone.